Hello and welcome to the ConneXion webinar series. This is the first track of week 2, and today we are joined by David Arnaud from Bobst, Enrico Gilloni from EDF Europe. We've got Giovanni Bettini from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries Europe, Paul Aliprandro from Sun Automation, and Rob Garvey from TCY. So I'd like to welcome all of the gentlemen here. Today we are looking at a session entitled, What is the Future for High-Speed Casemaking? So David, I'd like to come to you first, if I may. The whole concept that box makers are facing at the moment in terms of reducing order lengths and issues with fast turnaround jobs. What is the future for high-speed casemaking? Are we seeing a massive change now in how box plants are producing their packaging?
Well, this is an interesting question then. But actually, when we look at the market and the trend, we have made a recent study on some machines, and we still see that even for Europe or USA, the average size is still quite long, with 30 to 15,000 feeds per job. So even if the trend is to reduce it, the numbers are still high, okay, which still makes sense to get a high-speed casemaker for that purpose. We see also that with the COVID crisis we are living today, the e-commerce is pushing a lot, and we know that e-commerce brings a lot of standard boxes in very high volumes. So this is quite a balance that let us think that the high-speed casemaker have a great future still today. And globally, the market of our customers, the converters, is a high volume market with very low margin on a single box. So even for short orders, the speed to produce the box will be a key in the profitability of the productions. So of course, in that case, for shorter runs, the setup time will be more and more important. But still, the speed, we cannot afford a slow speed even for this kind of simple jobs.
And David, let's look at color numbers now. So in terms of when you're looking at casemaking as an industry sector, has there been a significant move from sort of single to 2 colors and then more now 3 and 4 color? I mean, are you seeing significant changes in color?
Yes, we see change in the will of our customers to switch from offline processes to inline processes. Okay, and this is pushing the number of colors we are printing on the machine. Still today, 80% of the jobs are 2 or less colors. So we see the trend, but on a market share that is only 20% of the production. So we see that, of course, we live it, and it's an important way for the converters to increase the profitability again. But still, it's a small part of the market.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Giovanni, I'd like to come to you now, please. Giovanni from MHI. Giovanni, when we're looking at high-speed production, I think sometimes a lot of people overlook possibly the importance of folding accuracy. Tell us a little bit about why folding accuracy is so important in the inline process.
Yes, folding accuracy is very important. I also would like to add, to agree with what David just said, about the importance of high-speed casemakers, even if the number of boxes is reducing per order. Because also now we see that, as David said, that the e-commerce, you still have a very long order, so you need high-speed machines. But also you have many customers that have a very, very short orders. You mentioned 10, 15,000, but also you have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. And in case of these customers, basically 50% of the time is a setup and 50% is a real production. So in this 50% with real production, you need to produce at high speeds. Otherwise, you lose productivity. So I fully agree with what David just said. Regarding folding accuracy, yes, we see that the trend of the importance of increasing of folding accuracy becomes more and more important already for the last few years. We have seen customers that demand folding accuracy as one of the key factors of buying a machine or deciding it, because then their customers, they have these auto-erecting machines and they cannot afford to have not a good folding accuracy. Of course, we cannot say perfect folding accuracy. Nothing is perfect, but we can get too close to perfection as much as possible. And this will help very much our customers to reduce waste and to get this big market.
And Enrico, I'd like to come to you briefly, if I may, and I am going to then come back to Giovanni, because I think, Enrico, when we start looking at the high volume, high speed case makers, the application of peripheral units, pre-feeders, bundlers, etc., and strapping systems are very, very important. How do you advise your customers, to start examining the project when they're looking to put in a high-speed case maker?
Well, then, of course, pre-feeder and palletizer and strapper are very, very important to reach a high productivity in a line for many factors. First of all, because, of course, if you don't have operator exhausted, they will be able to work better and faster during the order change. Secondly, we know factories are working with less and less people. In Europe especially, it's difficult to find people willing to work in a corrugated factory. So as less people you have in a line, and especially now with the COVID crisis, you keep distances. With pre-feeder and palletizer, you have people working 20, 30 meters away from the other. But another very important factor is the logistics, because in cases without the peripheral, you see machines stopping because of lack of board incoming, or because they don't have the right pallet to palletize, and all these kind of problems. So the pre-feeder makes sure the board is continuously feeding and pushing the machine, and the palletizer plus the logistic is making sure all what you produce in high speed will be taken away and is not creating a bottleneck to the exit of the line. And we talk about lines, as you previously pointed out, is very, very important that in designing such a process, you see everything as a line. So pre-feeder, case maker, bundler, palletizer. This could become a problem if you don't design it that way. It could be that you create a much longer setup time. Could be then to save money, you put a very poor strapping line or a very poor pre-feeder, and then you harm all the money invested in buying a super case maker, a super fast case maker, because the peripheral around and the logistic around are not good enough. Another very important point, what I see in the projects we touch, a critical factor is the focus on training the staff, training the people. So many times the customer wants to buy a very fast machine, a very fast pre-feeder, very fast case maker and whatsoever. And then when you go on the floor after 1 year, they still doesn't know very well how to use it. And it is very, very critical that the lean manufacturing and all the small details in killing all the dead time and all the time a guy can lose working in such a line is eliminated and everything flows smoothly. So yes, the peripheral can be the solution, but in some cases might become also the problem.
David, yes, please. You look like you want to add something there, David.
Touched a very important point regarding the peripherals. And here for me, the key word is automation. Because if you go for a full line, and this is really the concept we need to push to increase the performance of the converters, the automation transforms operator time in machine time. And if it becomes a machine time, you know what time you will need. If it's operator time, you are dependent from skills of the people. This is just your remark, Enrico. And once you make it as a machine time, you ensure the performance of the line. And if you look at the most performing machine today, some machines are able to manage 2 orders in the line. That means the automation is pushed so far that you have not finished the first order, then the machine starts to feed the second order. And this is really a way pushing the automation and getting the best from a full line concept. And I think this is really a key for the future of our industry.
Mm-hmm. We're going to carry on this thread in a second in terms of, automation and training and mindsets. But I'd like to come to Paul quickly here. Paul, I would like to ask you, particularly in the North American market, when you're working with clients to ascertain what is the best solution for them, whether it's open and close, whether it's fixed architecture, how do you work with your customers to help them work out what's the right machine for them?
That is important, and most of the machines out there right now are fixed frame. They're open close. I'm sorry, they're open close machines. They are the workhorses of the industry. But as my colleagues here on this panel, all the newer machines that we're placing are a set while run. And what we talk about with the customer is not only their product mix, but the proper size machine and what they need, but how many orders are they looking at per shift or per day? When you get into a open close machine, you're going to have downtime and planned downtime that you want to avoid. There's a lot of machines right now, all my colleagues here, that their machines can set up in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. If you're running around 10 setups a shift, you might want to consider a set while run machine. Again, as Giovanni was saying, speed is important. And I'd like to go back to what Enrico said. The full line is also important. It's not only the machine itself, the press itself, but the pre-feeder, the palletizer, the conveyor. Some investments can be millions and millions of dollars or pounds and or euros. And it gets into what is going to be your trouble spot along the way. And most of the time, it's not the press. I like to get back to one thing about the bundler. The bundler is probably the least expensive product or module on that line. And yet probably, although reliability is much better than it used to be in the past, probably the one that gives us the most issues. But so consider maybe a double bundle, things like that. But we always go back to set while run or open close is how much time are you going to be down for the next order? And that's what we talk about with our customers.
Mm-hmm. Now, I just want to check on the line. Have we still got Rob with us? Rob, can you hear us on your phone connection?
Hi, Dan. I can. I'm apologies for the loss of video, but I can hear you all loud and clear, yes.
Oh, fantastic, Rob. Well, listen, it's great having you with us. Rob, we were just starting a little bit of a conversation thread here on how you work with your customers to actually look at the choice of how they specify the machine. And you were telling me last night about a particular conversation that you were having with one of your customers just recently. So how do you go about sitting down with those customers to help them make sure that machine is right for them, whether it's a mini line, whether it's a standard, whether it's fixed architecture or open closed?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we tend to start with trying to understand actual work mix. What is the market that customers are looking at? Be it, are they looking to expand into it, or are they at a point where whatever they are currently doing is at maximum capacity and they need to take the next step? So the first thing that customers tend to do with us is look at their product mix and where are the pinch points within that mix. And then we sort of start to hone in on would the complexity of what they're trying to produce suit open and close architecture or fixed line architecture? Because I think, as my colleagues have already said, set while run fixed type machinery is hyper fast, but it's important to look at the entire line. So if you have a very, very quick set machine, it is critical that you have the front end sorted and the back end sorted to match the speed of that machine also. But I would say that that's more typical for simpler box types, maybe 1 or 2 color work. If you are into more complicated box types, let's say, where you need to spend a little bit more time setting up the slotter or involving the die cutter a little bit more regularly, then you're probably losing the advantage of the fixed type because of the time spent setting up those other elements, which you could do on the open close. So we tend to find that open close architecture gives the customers a little bit more ability to go after a more varied product mix, let's say. Be it short run or long run, it's more about the box type. And then if they are steering towards a more typical stock box type of product mix, then yeah, fixed type is a fantastic solution for that.
Fantastic. Well, Rob, thanks for persevering and connecting with us. I'm going to come back to David because I think he wants to add a little bit here. But David, I'd also like to ask some questions of you about graphics. So do you want to add something to what Rob was saying then?
Yes. Regarding the differences between the fixed frame and the open and closed machine, I personally think that we are able to produce exactly the same boxes with both types of machines. The point is the performance, how you want to be good in the setups. Of course, this has been covered with the discussion, but also in terms of speed. If you think about graphics, and I make the links with the next topic, if you have a fixed frame machine, you will be able to put bigger dryers, for example, than an open and closed machine. And in that case, of course, with bigger dryers, you have bigger power and you can run faster. So it's really a question also of user friendliness to operate the machine. Open and closed is not so easy. So it's really a question of performance. But of course, this has a price. And if you have the choice between a mobile and an open and closed machine, it's a question of price, but it's also a question of footprint in the plant. So whatever the product mix, it's always a compromise between the investment, the performance, and we can find a solution for each of the points, but it's up to the converter to make its choice.
So David, I think we're leading into a session here on graphics as well, because I think even though it might be high volume case making, there's obviously still the opportunity to still print the box nicely. Give us a little bit of background as to obviously within your group of companies, you have the expertise of very, very high quality post-print standalone offline machines. Have you started to see that technology creeping across into the inline process? So in terms of seeing that improvement in print quality?
I'm not sure I'm getting your question then. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm sorry. We're just really saying that the experience within the Bobst group that you have from your offline machines. Are you starting to see that that you're able to now move some of that technology across into the inline process? Because obviously, even though a standard box is a standard box, I mean, people are now starting to want more and more color on their packaging, aren't they?
Yeah, you're completely right. Today, we don't do any difference between the high graphics quality we can reach on the offline post-print flexo compared to an inline post-print flexo. That means it can be a casemaker, it can be a rotary die cutter, it can be an offline flexo printer. We really guarantee the same quality, okay? But still, we need all these different segments because the process are different and they are not making the same boxes, just as simple as that. So if it's an American box with high graphics, we can do it in one pass, and it's really a trend on the market, pushed a lot by Europe, but also with other continents. To transfer the offline processes, I print, I cut, I fold. So this is more complex processes with more machines, more people, and so on, to one single process, which is an inline process. And this is right that today the expectation of the brand owners is the same, whatever is the process. They don't care about the process. They just give the specifications on the box, and the converters make the box with the most efficient way he is able to do. And this is, I agree with you, the number of colors we sell on the market and we see on the new machines is increasing a lot, and a big trend. Even if it's not 100% of the product mix that is produced on the machine.
Giovanni, Giovanni, I'd like to come to you now, please, because I know that your particular casemaker line has been installed all over the world, in all the different markets. How much is the automation and the sort of computer systems, how important are those now when you think that in some territories where you're installing skill sets, they're not going to be particularly high compared to Japan or in Europe or North America. So what are you doing in terms of developing the technology to allow for that high volume output when you still haven't got necessarily the skill set within the operators?
Yeah, that is a very important question and point, because as you say, we are installing machines not just in Europe or in Japan or United States, but also in other continents like Africa or Southeast Asia, etc. So we need, of course, to make the machine very important to focus a lot on the automatism of the machine, to make it automatic. But we have to make machines which are simpler. It's very simple to be used by the operator. So our target is to make simpler and simpler machines to be used by the operators. Then inside we can have automatism to make it automatic, the ink change, the feeding, and many other points to make it automatic. But the machine must be simple for the operators to be used. So the machine must be user-friendly, and then for the full line. So the operators can do very, very little to use the machine, because also, as my colleague said, you find very little skilled operators, not just in Africa, but also in Europe, because very few people want to work in the corrugated board business, in a corrugator or in a casemaker. So you have a lot of rotation of people going into the machine, and you cannot train all these operators every time. So the machine must be very simple to be used. Of course, it must be with the software, with automatism, must be very, very simple and user-friendly. So that is for both operation and also maintenance, because also maintenance is very important. So the focus is to make simple machine for the operators and for the maintenance people.
Mm-hmm. Paul, let's come to you now, and specifically, we're looking at the North American market here. When you're working with your customers for choosing a particular case-making line, something Giovanni was talking about there was preventative maintenance. How are you addressing that with your customers? Because obviously, as we move into Industry 4.0 and the Internet of Things, connectivity is really important, correct?
Absolutely, and it's accessing the data that the machine is giving you. There is, and I'm sure all my colleagues' equipment has these features now. And if they don't, talk to the OEM, talk to the machine supplier. But accessing the information, finding out a fault on the machine, going deeper into the program as to whether the operator can take care of it or the maintenance person, the machine will tell you what the problem is. And that's what we're finding out a lot of, because I always say that the maintenance guy walking around with the 5-pound mallet to move a slaughter head is not what we want anymore. We need the person to find out the machine has an issue. It's telling you it has an issue, and now the machine can actually tell you what that issue is and how to fix it. So it just needs a little human intervention to make it happen, and that's what we're seeing on the equipment nowadays. And it's not just in the U.S.; it's all over. The industry is not a glamorous industry, if you will, and we have seen that in the 35 years that I've been involved in it. But it is a progressive industry. It is moving forward. What we're doing here with IIoT, with analyzing data of the machines we have installed, getting the machine intelligence, getting the anomalies verified, and getting that machine learning is also helping, and not only in the preventive maintenance end of things, but also reducing some of that preventive maintenance and actually lowering the cost of the total cost of ownership of that machine.
Okay, so I think what I'd like to do now here is move the conversation, possibly a little bit of a difficult question to answer, but I'd like all of you to have a go at answering this. But Enrico, I'm going to come to you first, and then I'm going to move to Rob. Enrico, if I said to you, what does the next 5 to 10 years look like in terms of equipment and the whole process of high-speed case making? What do you think the future holds? Do we think there's going to be hybrid combinations with digital marking systems, etc.?
Well, I'm a strong believer of hybrids. It is more than 10 years. Digital printers suppliers are telling us they are going to kill us in the next year. And Flex is still there, and more or less, of course, they are getting better and better, but the pure digital is another industry, is more competing with the offset printing, is more in the advertising sector and so on. So they keep showing us multicolor things which are covering a really tiny segment of the boxes you may produce on a case maker. What we see in the reality as a demand is start growing for case maker is the capability of variable data. People producing boxes that gonna be stored in automatic storages and has to be individually tracked, maybe for food industry or other sector, pharmaceutical and so on, where you need to data track precisely which any component has been stored, delivered, and so on. So each box must be individually identified. So we see it's not huge at the moment, but we see a growing demand of integration between flexo and small digital, fast digital, one color, two color maximum. So I really think in the next near future, this will be one trend for sure.
Okay, good. Thank you, Enrico. Rob, let's come to you. I mean, if you had the wish list or you were able to gaze into your crystal ball, what do you think is going to be coming over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think I would, quite honestly, I would echo what's just been said. I think we've all sort of dreamed of a digital casemaker, but I think the reality is slightly different to the dream, as is often the case. I think flexo is just, it's a winner because it's so well proven. It is very well known and understood, and basically it's very cost effective. As soon as you start introducing digital, I mean, we've seen it with the offline machines. It's taken quite a number of years to develop it to the point where it is now, where it's accessible to people. I think there's probably the slight concern I would have with digital printing on casemakers is you can't get the depth of colour that you can with a flexo. So I think the track and traceability about just IDing a box, that's a sensible approach, and therefore a hybrid seems to be a sensible solution. I'm not sure if or when we will get to the entire digital casemaking line, but the advantages of being able to introduce digital print are clear for everybody to see. You don't have to worry about stereos. You don't have to wash down. It's and quick to set up. So yeah, I think if we all move that way, that's probably a sensible step.
Good. Okay, Giovanni, your particular company has always looked at trying to keep its technology on the front end, and just some of your recent developments, developing a standalone or your own pre-feeder to match speed. But I mean, where do you feel that the future's going for casemaking?
Okay, that is in the next 5-10 years. I agree with what Enrico said. That is also about digital printing and the hybrid. That people from digital printing, as I say, they wanted to kill us, but they didn't succeed already in the 10 years. So I don't see at the moment that they will replace flexo printing the next 5 to 10 years. Also, because with the COVID situation, we have learned that the e-commerce is taking more and more place, and people are buying more and more on the internet. And as I think David said earlier at the beginning of this conversation, e-commerce they don't need high graphic printing. They don't need probably just one color. But for one box, that has to be well made, etc. But they need the trackability of this box. The box has to be traced and then eventually sent back. And this is something that can be useful to have high-speed casemakers, because you need to produce high volumes for this e-commerce, but also to be able to track each box and where each box is going. And for instance, a box that can be sent to a customer, to your house, but then you have to send it back, so the box can be tracked and they immediately from a barcode they know who was to which person was delivered, what was inside that box. So I think this is a kind of future that I see in the casemaking, the high-speed casemakers.
Okay, good.
Of course, we are working on this kind of situation.
Yeah. Okay, and I think Paul, we'll come to you now. I mean, have you got any little nuggets for us as to where you think casemaking is going to take the next step?
I agree with Giovanni. I see it more as a security serialized number. In the near term, I don't see it as a full color option. replacing flexo in general in the next 5 or 10 years. But I do see it creeping in. I think the main thing they have to look at, and we were looking at digital for a long time, is the reliability and uptime of the digital printer. And when you have a full cell costing millions and millions of dollars in euro, and you need to maintain a digital printer a little bit more than you do an ink chamber, then that's going to create some issues. So I don't see it quickly. Yeah, it's going to happen eventually, but I don't think in the next 5 to 7 years. But I do see security being a big thing. I see serialization, coding, trackability of the boxes. That I can see happening very quickly.
Well, thank you, Paul. David, I don't know whether there's anything to add there, because effectively we've got 4 gentlemen who are all saying pretty much the same thing. But I mean, I'll ask the question anyway. I mean, what do you feel is the future for casemaking?
I fully agree on the digital side. Digital printing will be complementary to flexo printing. It will not replace it for sure. It will be a long journey for us. We need to understand that this technology is quite new, specifically for post-print flexo, but the technology will evolve in terms of quality, in terms of speed, and in terms of all these parameters we know that are limiting today's penetration of the technology. And one of the key points will be the total cost of ownership because of the price of the inks. So once we will have reliable solutions, even for serialization, and once the ink price will decrease, it will push the technology for sure, but still complementary to flexo. An additional point, perhaps, and not only for casemaker, but for the future, we will see more and more some inside printing, and this is something that is coming on the market. We know there are some solutions already, and for the premium experience and the wow effect, specifically on the e-commerce, for sure this kind of solution will need to be more developed on the market, and the market is asking for it. So this is one of the evolution I see for the coming years.
Good. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much indeed. It's been a fascinating 40 minutes chatting to you all about where the future for high-speed casemaking is going. So, Rob, Paul, David, Giovanni, Enrico, thank you so much indeed for your time. I know that the people who are listening to this webinar broadcast, I'm sure will be making their way over to your booths in the ConneXion Virtual Expo. So at that stage, we will say thank you to you all, and we will look forward to catching up with you all very soon. Thank you very much indeed. Hello and welcome to the ConneXion webinar series. We're recording the second track of week 2, and the second session is focused on why does digital seem to stop at printing? So I'm joined today by 4 professionals from within the industry. Delighted to welcome Jan de Ruyck from ESCO and Aiton Varon from HiCon. We've got Steve Willis from KiwiPlan, and we've got Wim Koenig from MacarBox. So gentlemen, thank you so much indeed for joining us. As I said, we really want to start looking at what's happening in terms of digitalization of what we all know is a very analog industry. So Jan, I'd like to come to you first, please, if I may, because I think it's safe to say that in terms of the digital transformation of any analog business, that workflow is probably one of the most critical functions. Would you agree?
Yeah, by all means, yes. Certainly, if we look at more specifically the pre-press part within that workflow, it's very, very fair to say that that must have probably been the part of what we do in the packaging business that has been most impacted by IT technologies, and even the advent years back of desktop publishing was already a very first big transformation of the industry, and it really hasn't stopped since then. We have been continuously adopting new technologies, digitizing data exchange, deploying digital technologies to do the job which we in the past called stripping film. And workflow to that extent is kind of a two-faced word, because we all use workflows. Even in the past, when everything was analog, we also had a workflow, right? But the whole point of this digital era and digital transformation is that if we would look at our workflows today and analyze how we transform, how we transport data from one step in the workflow to the next one, there is so much opportunity today to look at where we create waste. And digital technologies give us so much opportunity to do a better job, a more efficient job. So from a workflow perspective, digital transformation, if you ask me, has only started, really.
And Jan, digital really in terms of this whole conversation that we're looking at, it is actually a bit of a mindset change. How are you as an organization working with your customers to try and influence that mindset change? Because, it's a very sort of conservative industry. The corrugated sector doesn't really like much change. How are you helping address and educate to get that mindset change?
Well, it is indeed, as you say, Dan, very much a mindset, and we see that across all of our customers, people and businesses are in very different and distinct mindsets. And I always look at digital transformation as a journey, really. I mean, there's not something that you deploy like overnight. And so the big question is for many businesses in the packaging sector is, where are they in their journey of digital transformation? And what does it take them in terms of investments, in terms of efforts, in terms of mindset change to move to the next stage, if you like, of digital transformation? One of the things we did to help them out is we looked at our entire customer database, and we basically came up with a maturity model. We're all trying to get grip of digital transformation. And one way of doing that is to deploy a maturity model where people can actually assess themselves, come up with a good idea of where they are in that journey, and then basically get tips and tricks of how to move to the next step. Our digital maturity model has 5 distinct stages of digital maturity. Most of our customers are in the lower 3 stages at this moment in time. But it's a great way of any business in packaging to figure out where they are, because that is absolutely crucial to determine what would be the logical next step into moving further digitally, further transforming your business.
Okay, Eitan, I'd like to come to you, please, if I may. Eitan from Hycon, well-known Israeli manufacturer and developer of systems that are digitally cutting and creasing. And I'd like to talk about, because obviously, Israel is a hotbed of technological development when you look at, some of the big inkjet developments that have come from there, and you've helped really lead the charge in terms of the digitalization of traditional analog converting processes. Tell us a little bit about how you've actually managed to work with customers to utilize this technology, particularly as we were saying earlier, it's such an analog industry, and we're taking a process, it's a complete mindset change. So how are you handling that process of change?
Dan, I think it's really a great question, and you're absolutely right. Israel is such a big hub of digital technology that came from here, both in the pre-press, printing, textile, and other industry, as probably you know. And certainly we are here in ICON are proud to be part of this journey and leading a disruptive technology. And to your question, I think that this is really something that we are investing a lot as a company. We look at it as what I would say 360. It's actually starting with even getting files through the web, through a cloud-based systems, web-to-pack and other means, allowing customer to play with files on the web, sending those files whether to the ERP system of the organization or directly to our machine, and then produce the product and then send it to their customer. And the way we see it is really the industry is really transforming. And by the way, I think that the moving from multi-pass technology in printing into the single-pass technology, allowing their customer to manufacture in much more efficient way on digital printing device, create a bottleneck in the finishing process, and certainly create also a demand on the way from their customer. Now they would like to produce what they want, to get it when they need it. They don't want to create stock, and they want to rely on a cloud and I would say on platform that are completely digital. And I think that this is part of the journey. When you have tools that allow customer to manage their file and to manage their ERP system on a digital way, and then you have a digital printing system, and you have, of course, a digital finishing system, you basically complete the revolution. And I think that this is a very, very important part. I will add to that as part of the tools that we provide our customer, we give them online information about the way that the operator are running the machine, whether it was on the first shift or the second shift. We actually send them all the time information how they can improve production, how they can improve the utilization. We send them back data about their gem rate and other production information that is very, very important, and all that actually lead to a digital revolution. Now, if I am a corrugated producer, and I have a digital printing machine, and I have a digital finishing machine, and I have a ERP system, and I'm getting my files from the web, I can actually give my customer, whether it's P&G or Mondelez or all the others, I can give them a real answer. I can produce for them on demand exactly what they need. We don't need to create stock, and we can deliver just on time.
Steve, I think one thing that has become very loud and clear in this conversation, it's talking about data and data management. I know that your organization has been doing a lot of work in terms of interfacing with various equipment manufacturers. But tell us a little bit about why you feel that that integration with MIS and the ERP solutions, why is pulling data from machines so critical? Oh, Steve's muted at the moment. Just 1 second.
Dan, I've unmuted it.
There we go.
Okay,
Steve.
Thanks for the question, Dan. Yeah, it's an interesting question, and because we believe that there's absolutely a place in our industry for digital and analog processes, and as a result, they totally complement each other. So the result of that is that can add complexity to the process, and we've found that often due consideration is not necessarily given to how various systems play together, and so. With digitalization, some areas become more complex and others less so. So from my perspective, I come from an MIS background, so I'll try to stick to the MIS side of things. We find that we have found, and we think we will continue to see that the packaging manufacturers will have a mixture of machineries. digital and analog, and what they really require from the MIS solution is that they require us to help them to make good business decisions. They shouldn't have to be making it themselves. They make themselves. So in order for that to happen, the system needs to be aware of the various processes in the factory, and it also needs to be aware of how particular orders can go through plants. Multiple different ways they can go through. So some key factors that we think need to be considered by the MIS are things like when things need to be delivered to customers, the quality of the print and the cut can vary on equipment. Quantity, is it a small order size, is it a large order size, are there multiple deliveries as possibilities, and obviously things like the cost of production are also key factors as well. So all of these are important, and it's really key that the MIS needs to consider these and provide the best routing with the least cost for the organisation and fits the purpose of the requirement of the customer. So once the route's been agreed, the MIS needs to support the other processes that are involved. So an MIS is not going to do the whole job by itself. It needs to make sure that it's communicating with all the different other systems out there. So, for example, the art and design systems are a very key part of the workflow we've talked about before, and there needs to be a seamless transfer of data between the systems. Another area that hasn't often been considered as seriously as it probably should be is that the MIS needs to interface very, very closely with the production machinery in these plants. So we need the capability to be able to download, set up, and order information to the equipment, to the printers and cutters, and we also need to be able to upload information about the production from these pieces of equipment as well. So a key for that as well is not just downloading and uploading. Uploading particularly needs to be real time. The reason why it needs to be real time is because manufacturing plants are very, very dynamic environments. A lot of important decisions need to be made, and it needs to have the most up-to-date information to allow it to do that intelligently. As well as that, we also have the shipping operation, which we need to make sure is as efficiently, as effectively as possible operating. And throughout all of these various processes, there's a huge amount of data, particularly in the world of digital, that can be collected. And it's really important that the MIS is collecting that, because it's not only the current one that's important, we also need to be looking at future runs and learning from what has just happened to make sure that what we're doing going forward is optimized to the benefit of the customer.
Thank you, Steve. Wim, I'd like to come to you, please. There was quite an interesting concept that Steve put forward there in terms of when we look at the traditional box plant that has a combination of digital print and now cutting and the analog printing and cutting and folding and gluing. Obviously, do you see that the digital processes are very much a complementary process to traditional analog? So in other words, enables a plant to move maybe the short run onto digital to allow more time on your traditional flexo-folder gluers and your traditional rotary die cutters?
Well, that's exactly what is, let's say, that's part of our company presentation, Dan. So well done. We really see it like this. We don't see it as competition. If you look to most box plants, they have all a portfolio of a number of jobs they do every day or every month, every week for the customer. But all of them have jobs. They normally, if they had a choice, they would not do it on analog. More and more jobs of these plants have more make-ready time than running time, sheets on the floor. So if you take out, let's say 10% of all the jobs and you bring them to digital, then you have a win-win situation. You'll have more profit because you can do it digitally, and you have more efficiency on your analog systems. Because these analog systems, nobody is waiting for the running a job where the running time is 20 minutes and the make-ready time is half an hour. So there is a win-win if you combine the technologies. And I see now more and more companies getting convinced about that. Your first question, of the question of the whole meeting here, is, of course, why does digital stop at printing? And then I think that especially the corrugated industry is in a different phase than other parts of the graphic arts industry. In the corrugated industry, for instance, digital printing is not very familiar. Not every company has digital printing. You do have multi-pass systems, but you only have a few single-pass systems, and they have not been around for many years. So many plants are still looking, am I going to invest in UV-based, water-based? Let's wait and see what is happening. And in the meantime, they're starting to look into digital finishing, because they do have short runs already. They still finish them analog, but they can create a win-win situation if they can finish them digitally. And I see that really more and more companies getting convinced about that. And some of them are not waiting until they do digital printing.
Eitan, can I come back to you now, please? Because I think it's very interesting when we look at the relative speeds and outputs of digital devices. They are slower than traditional analog equipment and processes, but obviously they actually fit quite nicely together. So the speed that you guys are able to digitally cut are starting to now match the speeds with which it's being digitally printed. So you're creating almost like a complete ecosystem. But what do you think is the next step? Because obviously, in terms of, we've printed the box, we've cut the shape, we've creased it now, but we still need to finish that box and we need to fold it and glue it. I mean, what do you see as the future in that area?
Well, certainly you're absolutely right. I think that there are few directions. One of them is indeed, as you mentioned, maybe going downstream into the folding and gluing machine and make them digital. That's one direction. Other direction and question that we are getting from our customer is to combine the printing and the cutting and creasing device together. And this is also a very interesting approach, because as you just said, the relatively I would say speed become very, very close at the moment. We are running at 4,000 sheets per hour, which is relatively almost as a standard die cutting machine of Bob's or other die cutting. So now the question is coming, why not to combine, and instead of moving the sheets from one device to the other, maybe let's have one device that will print and cut together. I will improve my efficiency. So we do see from the customer, I would say, a question about this direction, the one that you mentioned, going into the folding and gluing, make it digital, or maybe go into the printing device and combine it together with cutting and creasing. This is I would say it's a little bit maybe it's maybe we are now just, I would say, entering into the revolution. So we don't know exactly what will take which direction will go to speed faster, but this is really the direction that we see. And again, when you move to digital, you open a completely new era of opportunities, and that's what we learn from our customer. It's not only about digital printing and digital finishing. It's about your production capabilities. It's about supply chain. It's about getting new jobs. It's about produce on demand. It's about moving to the web. We see actually what happened now with COVID-19. The e-commerce is growing very, very fast. The online business is growing very, very fast. So, okay, How do I actually answer the need of my customer? We know that actually under COVID-19, many of the company have limitation. They couldn't suddenly produce their die cutting tools, the rotary die cutting. Now, if I have the capability to do it exactly on my manufacturing plate, I don't rely anymore on the die cutting factory, and that's it. I have an answer to my customer. I can produce exactly what I need. So we do see that the move to digital, certainly on the area of finishing and also in the future into folding and gluing, will create a complete transfer of the industry, as you just said.
Mm-hmm. Jan, I can see you raising a finger there. I'm sure you want to jump in there, because I actually also want to ask you, Jan, very specifically, is when we start looking at the concepts that Eitan was talking about there in terms of, effectively web to pack, the box industry's got to do quite a lot of changing to understand how the complete ecosystem of data and data management, how to handle it.
Yeah, that's definitely a fact. I just before I go there, let me go back to what Ethan was saying about e-commerce, and well, ultimately, if we produce packaging is a physical object, so we will always have physical manipulation and analog technology to produce and manufacture those as part of the workflow steps. But this whole adventure towards more e-commerce and this surge under the impact of the COVID pandemic going towards e-commerce also creates an interesting problem for the brands that want to put their products for sale on e-commerce platforms. And that is that where do they get the information from to show that product virtually on the website? Where do the product images come from? Where do the information about the project that is presented in an e-commerce platform, where does that come from? And I think that there is a huge opportunity for packaging converters there, because if you really think about it, who owns the data that is the ultimate truth in here? It may not even be the brand owner, but it is for sure the packaging converter that produced the box. They have all the data that is what we call in the industry a digital twin of the physical pack. So there is a great opportunity there for converters to also help their brand owners with providing them with the accurate and exact information to populate their e-commerce pages, whether if that is through retailers or through brand-owned e-commerce channels. It doesn't really matter. It is the converter that owns the actual single source of truth data, and there's a big opportunity there from a business perspective also. And now I completely forgot the first question that you were asking me. So if you can help me bring me back on the rails there, that would be great.
Yeah, no, Jan. So sorry, I was going to move the conversation towards you just in terms of, we're talking about, the web to pack concept and, control of that data. How are you helping your customers grapple with the change that's required in terms of, Industry 4.0? We're trying to automate as much as we can, but we're still a very conservative industry, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that conservative nature of the industry is like a really very apparent in at the very start of the workflow. You would think that acquiring a job and collecting all the necessary data from the brand in order to start producing the job, that would be quite well covered. But that's probably the space where we see most of the analog technology still being used today. And with analog, I mean picking up the phone and calling somebody. If the converter does not have the right ingredient copy or not the right logo, or they're missing some item of the specification, what happens is they pick up the phone and actually call the brand to actually get that information and chase that information. And this is where we, as suppliers to the industry, we can really make a big difference in developing web-based platforms for collaboration, making sure that indeed MIS systems where the specification of the job is being captured and recorded to integrate that with the pre-press workflow to further automate these processes. And this is true digital disruption in a field where account managers and customer service representatives are chasing customers with a phone. This is an area of opportunity again.
Steve, something interesting that Jan mentioned there in terms of dumping the orders into the MIS. It obviously creates a lot of disruption when you're trying to handle lots and lots and lots of small orders and short runs, etc. And I know, Steve, that your organization has installed MIS software solutions at some companies who are successfully using digital print. But obviously, it creates a scheduler's nightmare, doesn't it? Trying to automate these processes, because traditionally they are they like to be in control of the process. They're always thinking about, what grades are running on the corrugator. So your experience of working with these organizations who are using digital print successfully, do they tend to be smaller organizations, really agile organizations, or are you also seeing it in the big multinational integrated companies?
Yeah, so what we're seeing to date is more in the smaller companies. As we've heard a few times from my colleagues already, our industry is kind of a bit of a dinosaur industry, and we struggle to make change in some ways. I think that the smaller organizations tend to be more agile or more open to see what the opportunities are out there. But from the perspective of order size, if things are being done manually through the MIS, it absolutely is a bigger problem, creates a headache. But your MIS should be able to handle whether it's 10 orders or whether it's 1,000 orders. An order is an order, and as long as the information that goes in is accurate, then there shouldn't really be too many major concerns from the MIS of how it will handle it, making sure it's streamlining it. I touched on it before, things like the due date. As long as the key information is accurate, the MIS will handle it, no problem at all.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Wim, I'm going to come to you now with possibly a slightly bizarre question. But when we start looking at the new machinery that is digitally printing or digitally cutting and creasing, we're talking about machinery that effectively is being run by an iPad, a tablet. Do you see, is it becoming appealing now to the younger generation who traditionally would never look at the corrugated industry because we were an old-fashioned, slow, dirty industry? Digital print, digital finishing, it starts to become a bit more sexy. So do you think this is good for the next generation of operator in the modern corrugated box plants?
I'm sure it is, because what I see happening, and I also saw that years ago when I was at HiCom, Ethan, that if you're looking for successes of your company, then for many young people, packaging, corrugated is not very sexy, especially not with the analog systems. I see that converters getting find it more and more difficult to find good operators. And if you replace a few of these machines with digital, with laser cutting devices like HiCom, like Macrobox, it's easier to get operators, because the younger people find it sexy, literally. And they can say when they are at a birthday party, they can say they handle a laser operated machine. Yeah, that's much cooler than the traditional machine. So I'm sure it really helps. And I remember, Ethan, there was a former customer from HiCom in the past that bought a digital press or digital HiCom because of his successor, his son and his daughter. I think it was in Vietnam, Ethan. Ethan is
sorry,
on mute, I think.
Let's just get your mic back on. Ethan, please.
Yes, so I think that referring to Wim, what we see is actually two trends, and this is very, very interesting, because many of those businesses, they are family-owned business. And then when the father would like his son or daughter to go into the business, the young generation, and he showed them the analog device, they are not interested to come. But then when he's talking with them about digital, web to pack, and other solutions that are interesting in terms of the ability to do customization and creativity, suddenly they want to jump into the business. So we have, I would say, two trends. One, as we mentioned, that you see that the young generation is really fun about new digital technologies. And the other trend is, as you mentioned, we know that to have, we just finished an installation in the UK with a very big company. And within 2 weeks, the operator was running the machine by itself. That's it. And we were out of the site. Imagine how much it will take you to train a Bobst operator or a big Komori press operator. It's sometimes months or years. So it's completely a game changer. And as we mentioned, indeed, the young generation, when you ask them to come and run the big analog device, they're not interesting. But then when you ask them or you give them the challenge to run a digital machine, it's a completely different story. So I totally agree with what Wim just mentioned. Yeah.
And do you feel though that that also with the technology now, because of the inference of the fact that it's digital, in other words, it's setting itself up, it's taking a stored job parameter. Do you feel that almost we're in an era where we're struggling to recruit skilled operators? Do you think digital gives us an opportunity to really showcase what packaging can do?
Absolutely. This is absolutely true statement, Dan. And actually, we have one of our customers, Winget, in the US, and he told me that he tried to recruit an operator and he posted a job and nobody answered. And then he said that that this is for a digital machine, and immediately he got an answer that someone wants to come. So yeah, it's nobody. It's a problem. It's look like sometimes an old industry, and you need to give the young generation something that will really make it attractive. And with digital machine, there is a challenge. You can do new things. You are entering into a new business. You provide different type of solutions. So I think it's completely a true statement. Yes.
Good. Well, gentlemen, we've racked up almost 35 minutes here, having a fantastic futuristic look at where we're all heading. So I'd like to thank each of you for some very valid input. I think just to summarize the importance of data, the importance of data within the workflow, how we're operating our businesses, the opportunity that Web to Pack is giving us as possibly smaller organizations to grow your business, to be able to interact with influencers through Instagram and TikTok that are giving opportunities to produce on demand, very, very short run. But obviously all of the logistical headaches that it's going to give a traditional converting organization, and the importance of looking after your data and making sure that the MIS is still in the driving seat, enabling you to run your business successfully and profitably. So, gentlemen, thank you so much indeed. It's been fascinating. I know that all of you are going to be on the virtual show floor. So I'm sure anyone who's been listening to this webinar, please do go and find each of the gentlemen on the various booths around the show. So, gentlemen, thank you so much indeed. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the showground. Thanks very much.